You know those nights when you can't sleep, when you're just lying awake for a while, for a miscellaneous amount of time, and your head is just swirling with random thoughts. And then one moment you get a really, really good idea. All those thoughts come together, and you get this jackpot of an idea that seems to tick all the right boxes. It seems to be maybe really meaningful. It seems to be something that provides a lot of value for people. It seems to be really good in so many ways, except for the fact that it might take you a long time to make. Like, we're talking maybe even like a year or 2 years, right? Um, and so you write that idea down, and the next morning you wake up, and then you're like, okay, this is good. And then maybe over the next week or so, you ponder over it. You know, you're hashing it out in your mind, like how it's gonna go. And then you're like, should I invest my next X years of my life doing this? And then part of you really wants to go for it. Part of you really wants to just send it and just make it happen. But here's the problem: you don't have a lot of experience with this kind of project. You don't really, like, maybe you've done a few small ones on the side, but this one is big. This one will take 100 times the amount of time that it would take you to make one of your usual smaller projects. But is it worth it? Do you go for it? So, in my experience and just talking to a lot of people, it seems like the answer is no. Don't do the big project. I think in general it's a pretty bad idea to encourage people to go after like massive projects, you know, like just like, I guess, like blindly encourage. Like, I think it's good to tell people to go for it and try to maybe set the groundwork and try to, like, get into it and have it something they do on the side, at the same time as they do smaller things. But for a person to kind of just go completely into a project, into a new territory that they haven't explored yet, just makes no sense to me. And it's basically like, in my mind, it feels like if you deadlift 200 pounds, one day you're like, oh, you know what, instead of 200 pounds, I'm gonna deadlift like 400 pounds. Like, that's just not gonna work. Like, you're gonna have to train your way up to 400 pounds. Like, if you want to do a big project, you have to make sure that you've done the training and the warm-up necessary to actually embark on a big project, to actually see it to completion. Because there's a lot of people that I know that have like really good and big ideas, but then when it comes to actually implementing those ideas, it always gets lost. They start maybe working on it for a bit, and then you talk to them, and then they come back and they're like, oh, I'm not working on it now, but maybe I'll work on it later. And you talk to them a little later as well, and you're like, okay, well, how is this project going now? And they're like, oh, well, I put on hiatus, but then I started again, then I stopped. Like, it's kind of one of those. And the problem with that is that you can clearly tell that the person is struggling with themselves. Like, they don't have a good enough incentive to work on it. They don't have a good enough internal drive or momentum to work on this project. I think if you work on, like, say you're working on animations and you have you make like 2 or 3 minute animations and you put them up, and now suddenly you want to do a half hour or an hour long animation, and a lot of your drive from those 1 or 2 minute animations derives from other people watching it, then you're suddenly facing a problem where you're going to be if you're spending a lot of the time, or most of your time now, like, just working on this big project, and you're setting the smaller ones aside, you're losing that motivation for yourself to work on that big project, right? So maybe you'll get to 10 minutes of this animation, then you realize that you know, like you're not getting the viewership that you want, you're not getting the whatever it is that's motivating you to actually, those hidden motivations that actually drove you to make those small animations in the past just aren't there anymore. And that could be a problem, right? And I think like when you're embarking on a big project, it's good to have people working with you on this, because then you can be held accountable for not doing something, and those people, you know, could equally be held accountable by other members of the crew, or, you know, if they decide to drop out, then, you know, they're just a cog. They're just like or one part of the project that they can be replaced. So yeah, I think it's super important to I think it's really important to try to kind of think through your own personality in relation to the project. Like, is this something that I'm seriously capable of executing just by myself? And is the scope of the project also reasonable enough? Because I think a lot of the projects people embark on, they think it's going to be like, oh, maybe it'll only be like a few months. And a lot of the time, you hear a lot of these business owners say that once they start a business, they think it's only going to be 3 months. It actually takes them at least double the time. So it takes them 6 months. So same thing you can kind of infer with a project, like a big project, is, you know, a lot of the time it'll take you more time than you expect. So yeah, I think it's important to work your way up to the big project, to make sure that you really think it through and not just kind of blindly throw yourself at it. And it's, I mean, maybe there's some things about the big project that you like why do the big project in general? Maybe there's a few things that you like from the big project that you could achieve on a medium scale project, right? Like, you can break it down and be more reasonable with your scope and your ambitions. So, you know, you get the same kind of feeling and you get the same kind of sense of achievement and, you know, value, or maybe this could be like one aspect of the project that is valuable in itself but can be added on like after the fact. Like, say you're making a a software suite, you know, a series of tools. Instead of just creating all the tools at once, you can just create one tool and then create you know, kind of like a wrapper around that one tool, and then be like, okay, now I can add different tools. So if you create another one, you can add it to that wrapper to be alongside the other one. So that way you're breaking this big initial endeavor into like smaller projects. And that could be like pretty motivating, because if you release the individual module or the tool or whatever that you're doing, you could see values. It's like important to have those milestones. And a lot of the time with big projects, like if it's something that happens all at once, you know, if it's something where you don't really see these gains or milestones along the way that are worth it to you, that you are driven by, then a lot of the time you could just end up feeling demotivated, or just kind of silently pushing it aside, deciding to work on something else, but then never returning back to that big project. So yeah, just a few, just a little rant on big projects. So yeah, don't do them unless you have a really good idea, and of like yourself and the scope of the project, and if you're the kind of person that even does big projects, and if you're not, and if you don't know, try starting off a smaller project and see how that goes, and try to move it to completion. And then once you do that, then maybe increment up, or as I said, you know, if you have friends to keep you accountable, and you have the type of friends to keep you accountable and are down to help you with the project, then maybe that's a worthwhile strategy. But worthwhile to think it through, that's all I'm saying. Cool. All right, that's it.